Toastmaster. Okay, that's okay. Please take a moment to silence your phones so we can minimize distractions from tonight's speakers. Those joining online, please take a moment to mute yourselves as well. For those who are so inclined, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I would like to offer a couple of quotes for you that I think are pretty good advice. The first one is by Lady Gaga. Do not allow people to dim your shine because they are blinded. Tell them to put sunglasses on. The second one is by Oprah Winfrey. You define your own life. Don't let other people write your script. With all that being said, please help me welcome our president, Mr. Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome to another edition of Dallas Social Toastmasters. A couple of quick things. We do have a couple of guests, so please help me welcome our guests for this evening. That would include our guest right over here, and she told me her name was Shauna.
Yes.
Oh, I remember that. We have Nikhil. And I believe that's all the other guests. No. Josh. And Josh. Please invite him on. And tonight is an exciting night as we are nearing the end of our hybrid meetings. But more importantly, we, as a club, made it to President's Distinguished this Toastmaster year. So we've earned 9 out of 10 Distinguished Club points. And we'll recognize some of the people that helped us get to President's Distinguished a little bit later as far as awards, but of course, everybody helped us get to President's Distinguished because if you weren't a member, obviously we wouldn't be there. With that, please help me welcome our Toastmaster for the evening, Mark Schroeder.
Thank you, Lee. It would be nice to have at least an agenda up here when we need one. Can I have one? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everybody coming, and welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters. Boy, that's a flub. We used to be Dallas Singles. To Dallas Social Toastmasters. This is the penultimate, the second to last hybrid meeting that we're going to do because of COVID. We may still do some hybrid meetings or some online meetings just because we can't get our rooms here at Ozona. But with respect to doing it because of COVID, we've only got 2 left, and this is the second to last one. I'm going to be your Toastmaster tonight. My name is Mark Schroeder, and I decided that because we suddenly have the full stage, or we're going to have the full stage starting July 1 for the duration, I wanted to talk a little bit about body language because it's something that we can now take advantage of. We are no longer trapped in a little bitty box. We no longer are from here to here. We are now all of this, the whole stage, and we can finally start to use it to our advantage. And when I think of stage presence in particular, there are a couple of people that come to mind that have really good stage presence, and I want to talk about just a couple of them tonight. One of them in particular that I want to talk about is someone who used to be a CEO of my company, Carly Fiorina. Now, you may know her from something different because she was actually running for president. She was a presidential candidate that did not make it to the party nomination at the time. But she was the president of my company at the time. And what was interesting about her was her stage presence. And I want to talk about some of the things that I've seen her do. It's difficult to find something online that shows her entire stage presence because a lot of the things online, especially since the pandemic, are this. They're basically almost like a Zoom call and you don't get to see full body. But there was one from James Madison University that was full body almost the entire time. So you got to see her use of the stage and everything else that went with that. And I thought it was very, very helpful. So I want to talk about a few of the things that I saw with regard to that. So, one thing in particular, you probably noticed that I had that moved out of the way. That was exactly the way she started her presentation. She came up and she started her presentation the same way I did, with a few pleasantries. Hello, welcome, thanks for coming, all of those kind of things, without really getting into any of her content, but she did that while everything was being moved away. But the thing about moving it away, it says, I am not afraid to be up here, and I do not have to stand behind anything because I'm not afraid of you. And it gives that impression. And what is not obvious about Carly Fiorina, unless you've met her, and I've seen her again in my company, she is a really, really short woman. I don't really know what her height is, and maybe 5 foot, and maybe 5'2", but she is really, really short. But she has got a huge stage presence when she gets on stage. And it's part of moving the podium away. I hate to say it, but it's probably because if she stands behind it, you're going to see her about here from here down. She is really, really short. So she does that, especially since in this particular one from James Madison University, the podium had been there, and the guy who introduced her was behind the podium, and then she had to move, because I'm sure he was taller, and it would have been so obvious how short she was if she had not. But it also sets that expectation of, you're not going to scare me being up here. Now, I have to tell you something. Don't watch my knees knock. My eyes are up here, okay? That's one of the other gestures that she was able to use very effectively. She was able to lean forward into the crowd. It's interesting because it has two purposes, in fact, at least in terms of how it hits me. All of this is in terms of how it hits me. When she does that, it feels like there's a little bit of more intimacy there, like she's trying to get close and more personal. But how many people also felt this? How do you talk to a child? You talk to a child like this. It sets her up as an authority figure. Even with her short height, it sets her up as an authority figure. And it took me a little while to realize that was another little trick that she was probably using to overcome the height difference that she has with other people, even though she's on stage. That sets her up, that little bitty motion sets her up as an authority figure. So there's another gesture. This one, it's not actually anything that is in her particular speech. But one thing that I've always found very effective is when you're having a conversation, and the conversation is part of your speech. Like for instance, I was talking with Rob earlier about the fact that I needed to have everything moved. And I basically said to Rob, are you able to move everything for me in order to just move everything to the stage left, excuse me, stage left? Yeah, stage left. Move everything to stage, I have always trouble figuring out if it's left or right. Move everything to stage left so that I would have the space and be able to make that point. And Rob looked and said, oh, sure, I'm perfectly able to do that. I'll be more than happy to do that. I said, okay, Rob, when you get there, I want it done at the time at which I get introduced, because I'm going to be talking over it. And I basically set up what I wanted to do. And he said, okay, there's absolutely no problem. So if you didn't notice, that foot did not move. All I did when I changed conversation was I pivoted back and forth. And I was actually fairly careful to have the main character be first, closest to you on the stage, and the respondent be slightly further back. So that's another thing that you can do as you're doing, if you have to do a conversation as part of your speech. You probably didn't notice much happening with the legs because the point is there's nothing distracting about what I did. Minimal motion, get the point across. It was clear I was changing persons, and in fact, in general, I probably should have changed my voice a little bit more too, in order to make it very clear. But even without that, you get to see what I was doing. The final thing that is really so evident in not just the James Madison University appearance, but every appearance, is the way that she moves across the stage. Now, a lot of you are potentially coming here from work, or maybe you have to give speeches at work, and so it's not necessarily going to be uncommon for you to have to do this while wearing heels. A lot of this will work even if you're not wearing heels, but you might end up having to give a presentation in heels, and at 5 foot or 5'2", trust me, she does. So if you are in heels, a couple of points. If you are stable enough and comfortable enough in heels to have your feet straight forward, that's fine. A lot of people, they're a little worried about that. They're going to wobble a little bit. Or if you are not 100% comfortable, I just want to make sure you're not going to fall. The recommendation is something like a 30 to 45 degree angle. You don't go all the way to 40 to 90, but just put a little bit of an angle on the feet, and that will help a lot. And when you watch Carly on stage, and I have watched her as a member of my company for a long time, but this speech, as well as others, the way she moves across the stage is always the same. Get that foot out of the way, over, and set the foot again. And to move back, when she makes her point, when she gets to her point over here, put back, cross over, put the foot back. This has a couple of benefits, and except for the fact that it's in heels and you have to watch this part, this still works for men. The best part of this is it keeps eye contact with the audience. It keeps me looking at the audience. It's not the guy doing this and trying to talk and then coming over here and doing this, which you see all the time. Men do that all the time. There was a guy that was in charge of Dell. I've forgotten his name, but he was the president of Dell. Caged lion, back and forth. Just that kind of motion. And it was very distracting, among other things. This, it's minimal motion, it is not distracting, and unless you're like me and going, she did it again, it's not even something that you're going to notice. So that is what I've seen in her speech that I thought was so effective. Wanted to bring that to your attention, and just in case, because even as a guy, you can do the crossover with no problem. You just don't have to set your feet at the same angle to be stable. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and start doing some of our duty holders for this evening. I want to start with our counter. Our counter tonight is going to be Rob Giles. Rob, tell us what you'll be doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. As your counter, I'm here to help you to try to learn to minimize your crutch words. Well, what are your crutch words? There's some others that kind of feed in there as well. You know, like, and, so. Those are a little less. However, some of us use them beyond their needed means. And we are here to try to minimize that. And that's my job as the counter for you. I'm not going to click through a lot of those, but I will click if I hear if I hear or if I hear a long pause that's not intentional to what you're saying or what you're trying to present, you're going to hear that. I won't do any of that clicking during the prepared speeches, but I will do it throughout the rest of the meeting. I'll also take notes, and then I'll give a report when called upon by the general evaluator later in the evening. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rob. Our grammarian this evening is going to be Levi Joe. Levi, what will you be doing for us this grammarian?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As grammarian, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I'll take any note of any egregious misuses of the English language, as well as any luminous and exceptional uses as well. I may also note any interesting words and phrases. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day. For today's meeting, the word is ubiquitous, meaning existing or being ever at the same time, constantly encountered. Do we have tape by chance as well for this? Yeah. Sorry about that, my printer broke before I come over here. Each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. In order to qualify for best table topic, you must use the word of the day in response to the question. I will give a word of the day report and also a grammarian's report when called upon by the general evaluator towards the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Did you get that, or did you need to do that? Okay. Next, we have our posture monitor this evening. Our posture monitor is going to be Lee King, stepping in at the last moment. Thank you, Lee.
This evening I'll be looking for particularly good uses of posture and awkward uses of posture. When I see something that is awkward, I will ring the bell, and I'll give a report at the end of the meeting. Back to Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lee. Next up is Timer. Timer is going to be Tyler Madden. Tyler. Oops. What are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. As timer, I will be helping the speakers practice expressing a thought within a specific time. My duty is to time prepared speeches, table topic speeches, and speech evaluations during the meeting. The green card indicates qualifying time. The yellow card is target time, and the red card is maximum time. Sorry, these are a little floppy. And you have 30 seconds to finish up. For a 5 to 7 minute prepared speech, I'll show the green card at 5 minutes, the yellow card at 6 minutes, the red card at 7 minutes, and you have 30 minutes to finish. For table topics, each speaker is encouraged to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. I will show the green card at 1 minute, the yellow card at 1 minute and 30 seconds, the red card at 2 minutes, and you have 30 minutes to finish. For evaluators, you have 2 to 3 minutes. The green card is shown at 2 minutes, the yellow card is shown at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the red card at 3 minutes, and you have 30 seconds to finish. If you speak under time or over time by more than 30 seconds, you will be disqualified and will not be eligible for awards. However, for table topics, you must reach at least 1 minute. I will report the qualifying times when called upon throughout the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Our last duty holder is online. That is going to be vote counter. Vote counter is going to be Jessica Guadagnino. Jessica, please tell us what you'll be doing, and we'll probably be helping here in the room as well, in order, if we need to, with some of the votes. Are you going to take some of them, David? Yeah, we may have to relay some votes to you from here. But Jessica, please go ahead and tell us what your duty is.
Thank you, fellow masters, and welcome guests. As vote counter, I will accept votes through the private.
Jeez, hang on, we're having sound problems again. Try again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Got it. Go for it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. As vote counter, I will accept votes through the private chat to me, and obviously they're in the room as well, and count the votes after the audience votes for best speaker, best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and the best of the big three. The big three are the Toastmaster, the table topics master, and the general evaluator. I will record which person wins in each category. I will not cast a vote myself, except in the case of a tie, in which case I will cast a vote to break the tie. However, I will not announce that there was a tie vote. Again, place your vote by sending me a message in private chat and only to me, or I assume someone there will be collecting them. At the end of the meeting, I will announce the winners. You may also, and I encourage that you do, send comments to each speaker, evaluator, and table topics participant by sending private chat messages to the person directly. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jessica. And for those of you in the room, you will find the little teal cups, or for some people it's just blue, on the tables. Those are for the votes, and there are also ballots on the tables as well. If you are a guest tonight, you are welcome to vote as well. We would love to have your feedback. You're affected by everything that happens in this room the same way as we are. Please give us your feedback and please consider voting. Having covered all of the duty holders, the one thing that I want to say to finish up, I think, is that my goal being on stage here, like everybody else's, is to keep your attention. And I hope that by moving the lectern over there, the first thing that you thought was, this looks a little different tonight. And maybe that started to keep your attention. And if you happen to notice that well, they're now down here, that the high heels were coming up here, I bet that kept your attention too with what in the world is going to be going on. So I hope that I've managed to keep your attention. I hope that I've managed to point out how important body language is up here, because we got a much better opportunity from at least July 1st on to be able to take great advantage of it. With that, I think it is time to go to our prepared speeches. And if you don't mind, I am going to cheat. Yeah, if you would please move that back while I remove these real quick. I can only wear them for so long. All right, so we have 2 prepared speeches tonight, and our first prepared speech is going to be, excuse me, going to be given by Angelica. Angelica's evaluator is Tom Taricki. Tom, tell us what his goals are for the speech, and I'm sorry for the shoes in the way.
Thank you, sir. Although it's much more comfortable being next to you, not in heels. You're already tall enough.
That's true.
I'd look like I was 5'2". All right. So Angelica's speech tonight, this will be her icebreaker speech. Target time is 4 to 6 minutes, and the purpose of the speech is threefold. One is to begin to learn speaking in front of an audience. The second purpose of it is really to begin to understand where you are in your journey as a speaker. What are your strengths? What are your development opportunities? And then the last thing with all of these icebreakers, since it's about yourself, it's an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the club and for us to get to know Jessica a little bit. Did I say Jessica? It's right in front of me here, and she's right here. I'm looking at you. That's hilarious. You should have hollered at me or thrown something. All right, so the title of Angelica's speech is The Gift of Gab. Are you introducing it? For me then, Angelica.
All right, as he mentioned, this is Angelica's icebreaker speech. We are very fortunate to have 2 icebreaker speeches tonight, community members. Please welcome Angelica Perez with her speech, Gift of Gab. Gift of Gab, Angelica Perez.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, thank you for allowing me this time tonight to introduce myself. Tonight, my speech is titled, The Gift of Gab. You may have noticed it's a question, not a statement. The reason is that I often ask myself whether the gift of gab is a blessing or a curse. I distinctly remember the first time I got in trouble at school for talking too much. In that moment, I definitely thought it was a curse. Other times, it has been a blessing and led me to a career I love. Let me introduce myself. I'm Angelica Perez, and as you may have guessed by now, I really like to talk. I actually really like to talk a whole lot, but sometimes I struggle to make the point or to stick to the important details of the story. That leads me to why I joined Toastmasters. I want to learn to make clear, succinct points, organize my thoughts, and maintain a calm demeanor when speaking in front of people. Now look at me, I'm already talking too much and getting carried away. Let's take a step back so I can tell you about how my love for talking originated. If you ask my parents, they will probably tell you that I came out of the womb as a chatterbox. After all, they have 5 daughters, 2 older than me and 2 younger. I'm smack dab in the middle. Growing up, our house was never quiet. While other people's houses are like museums, ours would better be described as a circus, full of activity. With so many sisters, I'm sure you can imagine the nonstop chatter. In high school, my doctor required me to undergo jaw surgery, and my mouth was wired shut for 3 weeks. My sisters often joked that that was the quietest point in my parents' lives. Often, while I'm telling a story, my family will tease me by asking, is this a regular story or an Angelica story? An Angelica story refers to a story that is very long, has random tangents, multiple storylines within the broader storyline, maybe some voice imitations in there for effect. And just like that run-on sentence, my stories tend to run on. When even my own family jokes about my storytelling skills, the gift of gab can feel less like a gift and more like an awkward trait. Honestly though, my family's jokes are all in good fun. I am certain that my large family is where my love for storytelling and entertaining originated. It energizes me to make someone smile or laugh or connect with the story I share. Next, I will tell you how my love for storytelling led to a career in advertising. When I enrolled at Texas A&M, I had no idea what career I wanted to pursue after college. During my freshman year, I started working part-time as a student fundraiser for the Association of Former Students. My job was to call alumni, tell them stories about my experiences on campus, and convince them to donate. My gift of gab really came in handy at that job as I was the top student fundraiser. That was my first experience using storytelling for a purpose, and I knew it definitely wouldn't be the last. When deciding on a career path, I thought about things I really enjoyed, and I knew communication was a passion of mine. I realized that through a career in advertising, I could use my gift of gab to effectively communicate a brand's message in a clear, entertaining way. I remember the morning of a job interview, my dad told me, "Angelica, just be yourself and they will hire you." That gave me the confidence I needed, and I aced the interview. In that moment, it felt like everything came together. The chatterbox seeds that my family had planted grew into stalks of that storytelling with a purpose and blossomed into the beginning of my career in advertising. As I reflect now on whether the gift of gab is a blessing or a curse, I can see the blessings far outweigh the negative aspects of being a talkative person. In fact, I now recognize that it is truly a gift that I am very lucky to have, even though my sisters may argue the opposite. Just like any talent or gift, it must be nurtured in order for it to achieve its fullest potential. And we should all use our gifts to serve a greater purpose. I'm so excited for my Toastmasters journey, and I hope the Pathways training program helps me have clear, effective points when communicating, but most importantly, I hope to develop my gift of gab into a gift of good. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. Sorry, I was trying to monitor the recording over the sound over there, just to make sure everything was working well. Our next speaker tonight, also an icebreaker speech, is going to be from Mike Emmanuel, and his evaluator is Mark Sims. You can guess the goals are kind of the same, but let's have Mark tell us.
And we're very fortunate to have two icebreakers tonight, which is always exciting because it means new members. Mike's a relatively new member, and the title of his speech tonight is "Oh, the Places You'll Go." And he's, spoiler alert, he's told me a little bit about some moves that he's had in his background. And Mark is correct. The goals of this speech will be similar to Angelica's, to establish a baseline, see the skills that Mike has now, and then the opportunities where he can improve, and to tell us a little about himself so that we can get to know him better. And again, Tyler, this is likewise a 4 to 6 minute speech. So again, all the places you'll go. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. All right, please welcome, if you will, Mike Emmanuel with his speech entitled, "Oh, the Places You'll Go." Oh, the places you'll go, Mike Emmanuel.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Oh, the places you'll go, you'll be on your way up, you'll be seeing great sights, you'll join the high flyers who soar to high heights. This is a quote from the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. And it's fitting for my speech because I will be talking about all the places I've lived in my life. First, I'll talk about my moves before I got to 3rd grade, my moves from where I lived in high school, middle school, and elementary school, and then kind of how I ended up getting here. So, how many people have lived in a foreign country for an extended amount of time? I see we have one, so it's not very ubiquitous in this group. I was born in Tampa, Florida, and then 6 weeks after I was born, I actually moved to Germany. Not like another state, but moved abroad. And in fact, while I was there, I was so young the whole time that I don't actually remember seeing Paris, seeing Disney Paris, seeing all of these things that are really noteworthy. I also had the opportunity to speak German as my first language because my German care provider actually spoke to me only in German. And she also gave me a little too much German chocolate, so I got a little heavy as a little baby. Shortly, while we were there, my sister Catherine was born. Shortly after that, we moved to California. Is anyone here familiar with the Mojave Desert? Heard of that? I lived on Edwards Air Force Base and had the unique opportunity to see there were 2 space shuttle landings while I was there, but I got to see one of them, which you're sitting there looking at the sky, looking for something, and you hear 2 loud cracks, and out of nowhere, it's on the runway, and there's a parachute behind it. My younger sister Caroline was born there, and I remember it being very hot all the time. And one particular thing which is of note is most schools that I've been in, you enter the hallways through a main door, and everything's connected by an internal hallway. My elementary school, you entered from outside. There was no main hallway, you just entered from outside. So something that I noted. We then moved to Wichita Falls, Texas, which is an hour and a half northwest of here. I had a couple of distinct memories. One, it was a while ago, but there was a snow on Valentine's Day, and then all of a sudden it melted like by the next day because of how hot it was here. I also was involved with swimming and going to the local slides that they had on base. They had 2 really big slides. One was really high and round all the way down, and then another, my dad actually opened and had us take a picture going down the slide. So after that, we moved to Arlington, Virginia, and now this is kind of the transition point of where I lived from 3rd grade to my senior year of high school. Shortly after we got there, my dad deployed to Kuwait because he was in the Air Force for 6 months. In order to keep me and my sisters engaged, as well as my mom on some levels, we joined the local club swim team. As it turns out, it was a great success. We were able to get into a group of good people, have good friends, and these relationships carried with me all the way through high school. We also had the unique opportunity to be able to revitalize the swim team that almost went out of being a team because of the restrictions of 9/11 onto the base. The other big thing that happened was while we were living there, we moved to a larger house after my dad retired from the Air Force, where we had a big backyard and we were able to play with, like, when we were younger, do like badminton, soccer, and I even built a trebuchet for a high school science experiment to work on there. But the conditions for having that big yard was the kids had to mow the lawn, and we were able to negotiate. We could use the lawn and some gas, and we could have our own little lawn mowing business, and so that was kind of our very first way of making money. After working hard for elementary school, middle school, and high school, I was studying math and science, and I knew I wanted to be an engineer. But I didn't really know what kind until my senior year, where I took physics and mechanics and electricity and magnetism in high school, and I knew I wanted to be an electrical engineer. So, March of my senior year, I heard Virginia Tech calling, and I decided to pursue a degree in engineering at Virginia Tech. For those of you who don't know, Virginia Tech is 4 hours southwest of Arlington, Virginia. It's in the mountains, it's very rural, there's almost nothing there besides the small town of the college town. So it's very isolated from like a big urban environment. While I was there, after my first year, I honed in on electrical engineering. I was an active member of my Catholic church while I was there, and also in addition to that, I joined the local club swim team and did that all throughout school. So that was kind of the beginning of where I'm ending up a little bit. But then I got an internship in Dahlgren, Virginia, which is a Navy Surface Warfare Center. If anybody's heard of the railgun, I was there when that was an active project, and I got to see that, not fired, but I got to see all the equipment for that. But the next summer, I was able to get an opportunity to go work at Texas Instruments in Dallas. I finished my internship and accepted a full-time offer. However, it changed a little bit. I was accepted into graduate school, and they allowed me to continue my path in graduate school, and then after finishing graduate school, and 2 more internships that they allowed me to have for a total of 3, I ended up down here. And Dallas is my home. This is my place to stay. So I talked a little bit about, my pre-life before going to Arlington, my time in Arlington, and then how I ended up in Dallas. And that's a wrap for how I got here. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you so much, Michael. For what it's worth, I think Texas Instruments is pretty much ubiquitous on everybody's resume that say Dallas resident. I also have TI on my resume. I think actually it's kind of twice, because I left and then came back, which is even weirder or maybe crazier. I'm not sure which. All right, we have 2 speeches, both icebreakers. I have the duty now of calling on one of our duty holders for how did we do on our time?
They both qualified at 5 minutes and 25 seconds.
They at the same time?
Same time.
Amazing. All right, so we have 2 people who have matched each other's time, so you have absolutely no basis for a judgment on the time. But at this point, please number 1, cast a vote for either Angelica or Mike. Place them in the cups if you're here. If you happen to be online, although the only person may be Jessica, we'll see. And then Dagan will send Jessica the votes that are tallied here. I'll let her know. There also is a section on your ballot for comments if you would like to write comments to our speakers. Our speakers love comments. We'd love to know, everyone would love to know how they did and what impacted them most. So please feel free to do that. Give everybody a moment to do that. And while everybody is taking just a moment to do that, I'm going to tell you also that I cheated a little bit. It's worth your knowing that I cheated. The lectern was all the way over there, so I did not have access to the agenda, as you noticed. How did I memorize that? You will find that there is one copy of the agenda that has probably been used in the past 2 years that has the duty holders in alphabetical order. A, G, P, T, V. A counter, grammarian, P. Posture, T, timer, and then finally V for vote counter. I moved them around just so that I could remember them so that I could do it with it over there. So there are tricks that you can use, and if you don't tell people your tricks, which I just did, they don't know that you did it. Hint. All right, at this point we're going to go on with the second part of our meeting, which is going to be table topics. Table topics is going to be led by Dagan Nguyen this evening. Dagan.
All right, thank you, Mark. So it's table topics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question, then I'll call upon somebody to come here and answer that question. And there's 2 requirements to win a ribbon for table topics, and that is 1, use the word of the day, ambiguous, and also stay within time. So the time frame, you must hit 1 minute, but you have up to 2.5 minutes to go. So between 1 and 2.5 minutes, as long as you're within that time frame, you use the word day, you can qualify for a ribbon. So actually, I was trying to think about questions that go along with the thing, because a lot of times table topics, questions go along with the thing, but I just couldn't really think of anything off the top of my head. So I'm going to say a little bit lighthearted like I did my Toastmasters last week. So they're kind of fun, but thought-provoking questions. And they're called Would You Rather questions. So my first question, I'm going to do the question, then I'm going to call upon somebody. Would you rather humans discover a signal from intelligent life from another planet, or figure out how to extend human life for another 100 years? I'll say it one more time because it's kind of long. Would you rather humans discover a signal from intelligent life from another planet, or figure out how to extend human life for another 100 years? Lisa. Yes. Would you rather humans discover a signal of intelligent life from another planet, or figure out how to extend human life for another 100 years?
Okay. You ready for time? Okay. Okay. So I would prefer the first option of finding something from another planet. I personally believe that there is something out there. I think the universe is too big of a place for there not to be something out there. I definitely believe in aliens and creatures, and there's got to be something up there. So I think it would be kind of cool if we found that, and I definitely think it is ambiguous of space not to have multiple things. I think they're probably looking for us. I think they probably think we're the weird ones. That would be my guess. So I would definitely think that would be my option of those two guesses, or those two questions of would you rather. I would much rather think of that. That would be my option. Thank you.
Yeah, as I also think there's got to be some other life out there. With all these billions of other galaxies out there, there's no way there cannot be another planet out there with some sort of life out there. Whether it be intelligent or not, there's got to be something out there. Our next would you rather question is, would you rather wake up as a new random person every year and have complete control of them? Or once a week, spend a day inside a stranger without having any control? So would you be some random person and have control for a year? Or wake up, once a week, spend a day inside a stranger without having any control? John.
What was that last part?
All right. Would you rather wake up as a new random person every year and have complete control of them the whole year, or once a week spend a day inside a stranger without having any control?
Okay. Wow, that'd be kind of interesting. It would be a toss-up, because I think both would be kind of fun. I mean, you can go do whatever you want for a year, and then you know you're going to get away with it because, hey, hey, it's December 31st, I get to start a new life tomorrow and leave the old one behind. That could lead to a lot of things. Now, staying a total stranger for a week and not being able to have any control over it, I actually think that's kind of more interesting. Because I'm kind of a people watcher anyway. I can sit down and just watch the crowd and figure out what they're doing and wondering what they're up to, what's on their mind. So being inside them, and I don't have any control over it. There's nothing I can do about it. So I don't have to have any guilt about it. If they do something, I was just along for the ride. So that would be okay too. So, with the ubiquitousness of people in this world, that could be quite entertaining. So I would lean toward being a stranger for a week, not having control, and just watch. Because I like to talk, but I like to talk about everybody else, not in a bad way. But I know my life. I know what I experience. I know my stories. I find other people's stories more interesting, so I like to hear what everybody else has to say. So I think that's it. Back to you, David.
Thank you, John. All right, for our guests, now that you've seen a couple questions up here, would any of our guests like to try one out? Good. Josh, right? All right. All right, Josh, this is going to be yours. Would you rather go back to the age of 5 with everything you know now, or know everything now that your future self will learn?
If I could go back to the age of 5 and know everything that I know now, I'd probably do that, because that would be pretty cool. You could mess with people, you could mess with your teacher, you could tell really dirty jokes. How'd you know that? I would play on the playground and make cohorts of little kids and sell candy like it was, drugs in the back of the school or something like that. I think it'd be very fun to make an empire of candy and make all that money as a 5-year-old. Also think that meeting all those people and having those relationships with all those people, I'm trying to use ambiguous right now. I guess I just did. But if you know, the more you know, the more power you have in the world, and the more things that you can do with that knowledge. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. I don't know, I think I would probably want to know now everything my future self learn. But all right, so my next question, my last question, is does any other guests want to participate? No? Okay. All right, so my last question is going to be, would you rather take an all expenses paid dream vacation every year for a month, or have the job of your dreams? And this is going to go to Jessica.
So I want the job of my dreams, or would I want a all-inclusive like dream vacation? Did you say every year?
Every year for a whole month.
For a whole.
What's the vacation?
I would say I want my dream job, in the fact that they say anyway that if you love your job so much that you're technically never working a day in your life anyway. So I love to do that. So it's kind of ambiguous in that way, because even though you're working, you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, so you don't feel that it's dreadful or, something to not look forward to. And on the other spectrum of that, if I was working my dream job, that would entail being able to take PTO or be allotted enough paid off time in order to take my dream vacations anyway. So I think that would align with being able to have my dream job and then have my dream vacation all in the same. So that would be my answer to your question. And back to you, Mr. Topic Master. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica. I think I'd probably rather have my dream job myself. All right, now I'm going to call upon the duty holder. Did everybody qualify on time? Yes, they did. Okay. On time. And Grammarian, did everybody use the word of the day?
These just use ambiguous. It's probably my fault for the word. That's kind of confusing. So I'll give it both as qualified.
All right. All right, so now please vote for your best tabletop speaker, who was Lisa. We talked about the intelligent life. She's right here. John, waking up with a random person. Jessica just talked about her dream job. And Josh, rather go back to the age of 5. So also you can leave comments as well to the speakers. Anybody spoke up here, and I'll pass those to the appropriate people as well. Now I'll call upon our Julie Baldwin. Okay. I will now call upon our jury evaluator, Karen Lee.
Well, thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. This is the evaluation portion of our meeting, and first we're going to hear from our speech evaluators, and then I will give my evaluation of the overall meeting. So our first evaluator, and you do have 2 to 3 minutes for your evaluations. Our first evaluator is Tom Tariki. He's evaluating Angelica's speech, The Gift of Gab.
Thank you, Karen.
Oops, there we go.
I'd like to get that. Angelica, there you are. Okay, I'm going to cover a handful of things that you did well. I excel at, and something that you can use to challenge yourself on. So first of all, let me kick it off by saying, on the balance, I loved it. A couple of the things that I thought you did well, and by the way, for those who are new, who haven't seen it, all of our speeches have an evaluation form, and they even have an evaluation criteria of things that we're looking for. So this is going to be unimaginative, but I'm going to run down the list of those and give you feedback of what I observed along those lines. So some of the things you did well. One of the criteria was clarity. Could we understand you well? And I thought, absolutely. I was sitting back there. I could hear you well. I could understand every word. It was very, very clear. Another thing that I thought you did very well, my observation, was audience awareness. And that one also is something I flagged as an opportunity, as a growth opportunity. I noticed you spent a lot of time looking down and looking kind of generally at the audience, as opposed to eye contact, talking to various people. You'll find that when you do that, they'll be more engaged. I will say though, your speech, your content, that was another thing, is interest level. The content that you had was, I found, very, very interesting and engaging. Even from the start, starting with a title that was a question instead of a declarative statement or a phrase like that, immediately you set the hook. I want to know, what's the question? What are we talking about here? So I love that. And then also the content, you had other things that I noticed in your content that really got me leaning in and listening. I love the story about having your mouth wired shut. That was really entertaining. And you really set it up well by talking about how your family knew you as somebody who had the gift of gab. The other element that I really liked, that really got my attention in your content, was referring to what your family knew as an Angelica story. All of a sudden we knew, okay, Angelica can tell a story. So those are two of the things that really got my attention in your content. So some of the things that you really excelled at. One of the criteria on here is vocal variety. And I thought you did a good job of varying the tone. You could work on projecting the volume up and down a little bit more. But in general, for a very first speech, your vocal variety, I thought that was there. One of the criteria also is gestures. You didn't do a lot of hand gestures, but you did a few. You talked about being a chatterbox. But what really got my attention was not your hand gestures and your body language that Mark talked about, but it was your facial expressions. That's what really popped. I noticed eyes. You used your eyes really well, both your brows and you would sometimes, your eyes would go really wide when you were talking about something really particularly interesting. So I thought that was your greatest strength, to be honest. In terms of how it drew me in, was your use of your facial expressions. That was fantastic. The gestures I mentioned, those also I thought were very good and well placed at times. So I'll write up, I've got more, but I'm over time. But overall, I would say, outstanding job. I really enjoyed your talk. And I feel like we really got to know you as well.
And our next evaluator tonight is, our second evaluator is Mark Sims, evaluating Mike Emmanuel's speech, Oh, the Places You Will Go.
Oh, the places you'll go. And what I'm going to do, Mike, is go over the strengths in your speech, go over some things that you can work on, and then a somewhat subjective recommendation on how you can really build on your speech. For starters, the Icebreaker Intent was for us to get to know about you, and we did. You covered a lot of information, very good, a lot of content on your life. and you did it in a novel approach. One option is just to give a straight biographical and chronological detail, which I think I did on mine, but you told us about your life and your family's life in the context of the different moves. So that was interesting. And by the way, you weren't kidding about the moves. I mean, I lost count. I mean, you were more well-traveled as a baby than I have ever been in my life, because I'm not made it overseas. So that, it was really interesting, and again, helped us to get to know where you're coming from. Also, the speech title was interesting. I did not recognize the Dr. Seuss reference, so thank you for explaining that, because it's been quite a few years since I've read Dr. Seuss. But that was an interesting use of a title. All right. And another thing I noted is that while it was difficult, you didn't really rely on notes. And generally, I was so used when I worked to working off of a PowerPoint or working off of some bullet points. You really didn't do that, so you were kind of carrying this all in your head. And not easily done, because it would be easy enough to lose your place and then go, uh-oh, what do I say now? But you managed to hold all that together. And then you use the word of the day, ubiquitous, in your comments. So that's good. You were still adding on to the speech even while you were starting to give it, as opposed to being programmed to a predetermined script. Some things to work on. I would say focus on slowing down. It seemed like there was some rushing. And maybe if you think you might be pressed for time, you could either leave something out, or maybe practice a few times at home timing yourself. And just as an example, I think at one point you asked a question if we knew what we knew about the Mojave Desert, and you may have gotten some audience response. I didn't see that. It almost looked like it was a quick response on your part to that. And then I noted a few examples of walking sideways and looking down, a couple of times looking down. So not all the time, but it's good as much as you can to maintain audience eye contact. One recommendation would be work a little more on the ending. And this is just subjective, but since you had a great title, the places you'll go, maybe at the point where you noted, okay, you had accomplished your speech objectives, you told us all about your moves, and it was something like, oh, the places I've been, and I'm so glad to be here with you in Dallas Social Toastmasters in Dallas. So just food for thought, and thank you for the icebreaker.
Now we'll go ahead and give my report so that the duty holders get a chance to ding me. And we started our meeting today at 6:40. Oh, our timer's report. Yes, sir. Our two evaluators, did they qualify for time?
They did not, but I feel like there's one thing it's not qualified for the evaluation. So you get a thorough, not rushed. But Tom, you're at 4 minutes, and Mark, you were at 3 minutes and 34 seconds. So sorry, I didn't do any justice.
No, that's fine. Okay.
Close.
You were over by one word.
I figured it.
Well, okay, we will not vote for best evaluator then. When we did start our meeting, Mark gave us a very good demonstration of stage presence, and he even put on high heels and showed us how to walk in high heels. So I thought he did a very good job keeping his balance. He must have practiced this very well. And I do note that when one person goes off the stage and one person comes up, normally we shake hands and then go off stage and then the next person comes up. So I did not notice that always happening when people were releasing the stage to the next person. Dagan did ask appropriate questions that were very thought-provoking during table talks tonight. And also we had our guests participate, so that was very good. On our evaluators, Tom, I noted you gave 7 different suggestions for improvement. You gave 7 suggestions that were very good, and then you gave 1 suggestion for improvement. Mark, I counted about 4 different suggestions for improvement and 3 suggestions that were very excellent that the speaker gave. So all in all, we had very, very balanced evaluations. And I will go ahead at this point and ask for the duty holders reports. So for our counter, Rob Giles, will you go ahead and give your report?
Madam General Evaluator, thank you. We had quite a bit of clicking. I don't know if anybody heard it. It might not have been as loud as that, but there definitely was clicking throughout. So if you heard that, that means that you were doing something. Hopefully you heard it and understood it. I'm going to go through some of the things that we had infractions on, if you can call it that, throughout the meeting. As Toastmaster, Mark, I did not hear anything. I heard 1 so. I thought maybe that might be a sequence of so's, but 1 is fine if that is used appropriately. If you have them in between each sentence, probably a little overused and not necessary, but you did a fine job with that. Our duty holders, when they gave their descriptions, clean. I didn't hear anything from that. Angelica, during your speech, I didn't hear any crutch words at all, so great job with that. It's a little bit unique for an icebreaker. Mike, during your icebreaker speech, your crutch word is so keep an eye on that. You didn't hear clicks from me because during our prepared speeches we don't click. You do have an opportunity to let the counter know before the meeting starts, hey, I want to get clicked, I want to get dinged if it, talking about posture, but you do need to let them know that if you want that. And that can maybe expedite your improvement. Dagan, during your table topic session, I didn't hear it. Maybe once. So good job with that. I did hear a couple of uhs. Lisa, during table topics, 1 That's pretty good. John, during your table topics, you had 1 I mean, which you could have left off. Don't have to say, I mean, and then you went into your next sentence, really, as if we could read your mind, really. But that wasn't the big thing. The big thing was that you had a lot of so's, which were there for transition, that weren't necessarily needed. Josh, you had only 1 during your table topics. Very good. Jessica, I guess I should look here. Jessica, you had 1 during your table topics, also very well done. For our evaluation portion, Karen, you had a couple of uhs and ands that I didn't think you really needed as for transition, but not overdone. You didn't repeat it over and over. Tom, during your evaluation, you had 3 uhs, a couple of ums, you had a handful of so's sequencing sentences, and you had 1 repeat start where you said and. That being said, keep in mind, we do post the recording, so you can always go back and look, and I encourage that, especially for the prepared speakers. Mark Sims, during your evaluation, your crutch was really the transition where you used a lot of ands in between each of your points. Not necessary. Maybe once or twice would be good, but that. And then you also had 1 which is a little uncharacteristic of you, but it was just 1. Overall, I think we didn't do well, but think about the uhs, think about the ums. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Our grammarian, Levi John.
Good job, everyone. And sorry about my last presentation here. I was trying to leave. My printer's not working, so I was driving and writing, which is never safe. But good job, everyone. Everyone else, table topic speakers, everyone gets the word of the day. Angelica, I like to use the word chatterbox. That's a very interesting kind of characteristic to use to describe yourself. I like that a lot. And also describing your stories as Angelica stories. It's a good way to use using your name as an adjective. I found that very interesting as well. And then also comparing your kind of regression to a growing stock and working your way through improvement. That was also a good analogy. Michael, I really liked your rhyme at the beginning, kind of quote Dr. Seuss. That was very different and kind of novel as well, like Mark used, good word as well. And then also use word of the day. It's always tough in your first speech, so very impressive with using that as well. But otherwise, good job everyone, and thank you, Ms. Evaluator.
And our posture duty holder, Lee King.
Great job this evening. I didn't really notice anything major outside of the prepared speeches, which we've heard about already. So great work. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
So at this time, I'll go ahead and ask for a vote for the best of big three. That would be between Mark Shorter as our Toastmaster, David Newland as our tabletop master, and Karen and myself as our general evaluator. And I will go ahead and call up Lee King for our business meeting. Okay.
Just to close it out before we start the business meeting. Just because I'm Toastmaster, I kind of get to do this. One thing I do want to say, we are coming out of a pandemic. We are still here. There are many of our competitor clubs that did not make it. When we started, I was actually looking at Addison Singles, asking them how they were staying in business and how they had so many members. They are dead. There are other clubs that we have wondered how they were surviving, and they are dead. We are still here. Whether you were here before the pandemic started, or whether you were one of the crazy people that voted us with your confidence during the pandemic and wanted to join us, I just want to know I appreciate it. We have had so many conversations among the officers going, are we going to make it? Because it was not a slam dunk. There is no way it was ever a slam dunk. But thanks to the members who have stuck with us and the new members who have joined us, we are still here when others are not. Just want to thank you all.
We'll start off with hearing from our guests. We'd just like to know how you found us, what you thought about tonight's meeting, and we will start with Shanna. Shauna, sorry. Nikita is our next. I'm sorry? Nikhil, I'm sorry. Nikhil.
So I actually at work, somebody gave a real big meeting with our young professionals in the Austin office, and there was about 40 people involved, and they had to do with the Toastmasters. And then one of the guys in there said he's been working for over a year now. Changed his whole life kind of, and his career as well. So then after the meeting, I was like, all right, let me see what's nearby. And I literally just moved down the street here, so luckily you guys are here. But this was really cool because the way it's set up, where there's different tasks for everybody, which everyone's involved. It's not just they're coming just doing a speech. So that's great.
Oh, thank you. And it's Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, I thought it was really well organized. I've been to other Toastmasters, and they really don't do it as well as you guys do. And to have the stage here, that's another plus of coming. Everybody's here in person. So tired of seeing people on the screen, so I'm just happy to be here. Great job.
All right, thank you. Guests, please feel free to come back at any time. As far as announcements goes, officers, there will be various Toastmaster leadership institutes. Sorry? Oh, yes.
Danielle.
You haven't joined officially yet.
Oh, she hasn't joined yet.
Well, this is my third meeting, and as I keep saying, I like the energy, I feel comfortable here. Thank you guys for this opportunity to feedback on the job you guys are very working on. I like the flows, and you know you guys are funny. This is a good time to be around.
Oh, thank you. Officers, just as a reminder, there'll be various Toastmaster Leadership Institutes offered throughout the summer. Please attend at least one so that you can be trained and we can continue getting our credits for having trained officers. If you're not an officer, you'll still get invited to the Toastmaster Leadership Institute, which is an opportunity for you to learn more about speaking and leadership skills. And if you're interested in learning about the different officer roles, that's a great opportunity as well. Perhaps if you attend and you decide that you're interested, we might go ahead and rope you into a role next time around, or if you attend, we might go ahead and, well, volunteer you to do a role next time around. You never know. But it is a great opportunity to just learn more about speaking and leadership overall. At this point, I will now go ahead and bring up our Vice President of Education, Rob Giles, who has a few awards that he wants to present as we are celebrating our year concluding, or really 2 years of being in a pandemic, but closing this year out as President's Distinguished. Please help me welcome Rob.
Thank you so much, Lee. I'm going to run back here and grab a couple things.
Okay.
First, actually, let me say, I'm going to present some awards for some individuals, some achievements, and some things that represent each individual, but also some things that represent our club. And it's, to some extent, piggybacking off of what Lee just explained. We had our officers trained last summer and then again in the winter, which is normal for Toastmasters, for the officers for the club. And because we did that, and we did that in a certain fashion, we had some awards. What I would like for you to do, if you could, if you're an officer that's in the current term, not the upcoming term, if you could please come up to the front of the stage. Or on the stage, either one.
And I guess line up in order.
That'll be perfect. Perfect.
By height or by?
You're always trying to get an advantage, aren't you?
I always am.
So let's see, I think Mark, you would get, Mark Schroeder, you'd get between Karen and the other Mark,
there we go.
and there we go.
Actually, I think John goes ahead. And Karen goes up the end, but that's
Yeah.
fine. Totally fine. Okay, so back in the summer, we had all of our officers trained. For Toastmasters, in order to gain some points for what we call our Distinguished Points or Distinguished Club program, you have to have at least 4 officers trained during that session. Because we had 7 officers trained, all 7, we were awarded pins for all of our officers. One, it's a testament to the dedication for all of these officers that are up here. They've done a lot of this before, but I want to hand out the pins for each of your positions. And this is mine right here, Vice President of Education. But we also have our treasurer, Dagan. I guess I'm doing this out of order. But, so the lining up wasn't all that great. But we have our club president, Lee King. We have our Sergeant at Arms, Karen Lee.
Thank you.
Our club secretary, which is John Vessels. We're running out of pens here, right? So we're almost done. Okay, we'll wait for that one. And this is our Vice President of Membership, Mark Sims. And our Vice President of Public Relations, Mark Schroeder. And then finally, one that is normally bestowed upon the President who was from the previous term. And we call that the immediate past President. So that would be, for this time, Lee. Was it Lee?
No, well, it was actually Mark.
Mark, yes. So this one goes to you, Mark. You are our immediate past President. Lee will be both the President and immediate past President coming up very shortly. But please give a round of applause for all of them for stepping up. And if you just want to stay on stage for one more moment, I want to bring up something else. So that was all for our summer TLI, Toastmasters Leadership Institute. And again, that's only if people get, or clubs get, all 7 officers trained. In the winter, we train again for winter TLI. And in our particular case, our club also again had 7 officers trained, all 7. And what happened with that? We ended up with a ribbon for our banner. You see our banner over there, although it might seem a little out of date by saying Dallas Singles. Hopefully we'll get that updated soon. You'll see a lot of ribbons on there. That's over the course of the life of the club. This is another ribbon that will go up on there for all 7 officers trained. It's the Super 7 Club 2021 to 2022, 100% officers trained. So please, again, for the dedication and service from our officers from the past year, let's give a round of applause. And at this point, I would like for some of you to remain on stage. Well, actually, one to remain on stage. I'm trying to think who is here. 2 of you to remain on stage. The rest can go down. The 2 that I would like to remain on stage would be Mark Sims and John Vessels. And then also, I would like for one other person out in the audience to come on stage, and that would be Mr. Tom Tariki. Actually, Mr. President, can you get back up on stage? I do have something else for you. Okay, so as we go through our Pathways journey in Toastmasters, that's the education program. After you give a certain amount of speeches, there's different levels. But once you have completed the speeches in those each level, then you can get recognized for that. You've achieved level 1 or level 2, whatever path you have. And I want to recognize tonight, and I ask for everybody to give a round of applause for Tom Tariki. Tom achieved Dynamic Leadership Level 1 a little while ago, but not super long. I want to say it was, at the very longest, maybe it was in April. So, Tom, here's your certificate. And then also we have Mark Sims, who achieved Level 2 of Presentation Mastery. Now, Mark really achieved this. He completed it, except for the final thing of actually hitting the submit button. He completed, I think, in 2020. But after he recently did that, and these also apply to the DCP points, the Distinguished Club Program points, and that helps our club be recognized among the district. But he achieved Level 2 of Presentation Mastery. Please give a round of applause for Mark. And John Vessels. John does a lot, and he has been very fervent with getting up here on stage when asked to give a speech. And he recently completed in his path of visionary communication, Level 4. So please give a round of applause for John. I don't know if anybody can take a photo of maybe these guys hold up, but before you do that, I don't have one. Oh, I do, but that's okay. I want to give one more thing. When you achieve, within the same Toastmaster year, if you achieve a Level 3, Level 4, and Level 5 in a path, that is what we refer to as the Triple Crown. And one of our members did that this past year, and that is our club president, Mr. Lee King. Lee, here's your thing for So Lee, if you can maybe hold that up. I know they won't be able to see that, but if you guys could also show your certificates, and maybe we get a photo.
You want in there as well?
No, I didn't achieve anything.
Yes, you did.
Well, not in this particular.
All right, everyone, here we go. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to do at least one more because somebody's probably got their eyes closed. 1, 2.
Thank you all so much for the help of the club tremendously when we move on. Oh, wait, Mark Sims. Don't go anywhere. I got one more thing. I'm sorry. And I told Lee I only need 10 minutes, but well. if you've been around, you know me, prepared speeches, this is a similar situation. So I always need a little bit more than what I say I'm going to need. So this past year, every year we have contests in Toastmasters where certain individuals from the clubs will step outside of the club, whether they win a club contest, but they go on and they compete in the area or the division or the district. And that could be good enough, you could become the world champion of public speaking, or at least compete for that. Mark Sims competed in the evaluation contest this past spring? This past spring. And he came in second place in the evaluation contest for our area 33. And this is his trophy for that. It's been a little while coming to you, so I apologize for that, the timing of everything, but congratulations and thank you so much for representing us. And that is stepping up. So thank you all so much. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, let's go ahead and get a vote comments report, please.
Yes, thank you. So for the best speaker, it was Angelica. Sorry, I'm not there to physically distribute the ribbons, but I hope someone is for you. And then for the best table topics, it was John. Congratulations, and being that
Did you already say best speaker?
I did. It was Angelica, and then table topics was John.
And the best of the big three?
And that was, let me just double check. I want to say it was Mark. Yep. Congratulations.
And with that, the meeting is adjourned.
One moment, please, while we stop the recording.